Oh, a few more joining us. Thanks for joining us, guys. My name's Philip Timchek, and Dr. Nance is here with me. We're going to talk about our integrating a team approach for hybrid and online instruction, looking at practical applications for course design, delivery, and instructional management. So we want to do something a little different to start us off, and I've got a little poll for us. So I'm going to stop my share and launch our polling. You can select as many options as you would like.
And the question is, why are you here? And don't worry, we won't keep your response. But we do want to know, why are you here?
Oh, they're coming in now, Dr. Nance. I don't know if you can see it live, but they're coming.
Okay.
Oh, we got another individual joining us.
For those just joining us, we have a poll up. We've just introduced ourselves, and we just want to know what brings you here with us today on this beautiful afternoon online and Zoom at this session. So just if you could just let us know why you're here, and we can kind of sum that up and talk a little bit about it.
I've got 81% voted. So
wow.
I'm not sure who's abstaining.
Oh, we have some people abstaining. Okay. You ready to show the poll?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's see what we got.
You should be able to see the results, correct?
Yes.
Well, that's good. Everyone said that they are here to learn more about our topic of choice. So that's good. A couple of us wanted to do another city training. I don't blame you at all. They're usually very insightful. Few of us use that team approach now, probably want to learn more. I got a feeling some of those individuals are our immediate colleagues, Dr. Nance, in the nursing program.
I think so.
I can definitely appreciate the person that says, I don't know, all I know is I'm here. I feel that way many times in my life.
We're glad you came.
Yeah. Some of us don't know much about it. That's not a problem at all. That's why we're here. And for the three of you that suggest that you're here because of us, thank you so much. If our name was that big of an attraction, we'll certainly keep doing more.
Thank you.
All right, let me go back to sharing this and we'll push on through here.
Can you go back one second? Go back. Okay, just for the people that joined us just a little later, the title of our presentation is Integrating a Team Approach for Hybrid and Online Instruction, Practical Applications for Course Design, Delivery, and Instructional Management. And I will introduce myself again. My name is Dr. Kimmy Nance. I am a RN BSN faculty member and the Division of Nursing, and I have taught in the undergraduate program here for several years, probably since the 2000s. And then Mr. Timchek, you want to introduce yourself again?
Sure, yeah, Mr. Philip Timchek. I'm the Division of Nursing as well. I teach undergraduate. I've been here for almost 4 years now. Both of us are city faculty fellows, as you can see. I've served a couple terms. Dr. Nance is on her first, and it's always good to enjoy all our city activities. But we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of information for you. We can certainly share these slides once we are done. Some things we won't go into too much depth on. We really wanted to focus on practical application and discussion around the topic.
So we'll go right into our objectives. By the end of this presentation, we want you to be able to identify 2 advantages for implementing a team-based approach for instructional design, delivery, and management in either a hybrid or online course. We want you to be able to discuss key elements of instructional design, delivery, and management, discuss strategies to apply a team approach for instructional design, delivery, and management. Then we want you to describe 2 attributes of effective instructional teams, discuss strategies to address workload equity when implementing a team approach, and identify just one resource. We have many for you, but just one we want you to identify to foster faculty development and hybrid online instructional teams. So why team approach? Why the discussion? Why now? We appreciate you sharing while you're here. And as you all know, that 2020 was the year of COVID, the year of radical change in higher education. And we had to do a whole lot here at our institution. We had to come up with new strategies. We moved into remote learning. We had to broaden our ability to work with informatics and technology. So we just had to do a lot. And in addition to that, there's some major changes in our workload. Because of the way what's going on in the world today, our students' needs, they've always had needs that we've attempted to address, but they have changed and they're requiring a lot more from us. As you know, we have budgetary constraints. And now we are in 2021 and we have these things behind us. So it's time to reflect, refine, revise our instructional practices. And a team approach, it provides an opportunity to collaborate in the development of innovative strategies for course delivery design to meet the needs of our students in remote, hybrid, distance, and in face-to-face learning environments. So team approach, you got to talk about the background, right? The information on the concept. So it's a concept with many terms. So when you see team approach, you go in the literature, you may see collaborative teaching, co-teaching, team teaching. It's used interchangeably. But for the sake of for you to have additional information, we're going to just define these for you. And again, you'll have these slides. So collaborative teaching involves 2 or more faculty who work together in designing and teaching a course that includes group learning. We have co-teaching that occurs when there's a shared responsibility among 2 or more faculty, planning, instruction, and evaluation. And then team teaching reflects an equal partnership agreement among 2 or more faculty with the expectation of engagement and substantive contribution. I want to highlight that, engagement and substantive contribution to the materials needed to maintain the integrity of the course. And in an online course, team members also work together to provide high levels of clarity and interaction with students. So we gave those definitions of the team approach, but just use team. The definitions are just there for reference, but the bottom line is there's a benefit of working together, and together everyone achieves more. So some of the benefits, next slide please, some of the benefits of the team approach is that because you can work together, then you can have a collaborative design, and that's going to facilitate quality. You can build upon the strengths of others. Having additional faculty working together to meet the needs of students is going to help balance out that workload. And then when you don't work alone, as many of us already know, and you work with others and collaborate, you have that larger body of expertise. And by working together in teams in our courses, that fosters us to collaborate and share not only the resources, our lectures, but also as it relates to promoting partnerships with research and papers and so forth. And then if done in a good way, effective way, it can ease the workload demands as long as that collaborative approach is there.
So now we're going to look at some of these practical applications for our team approach for hybrid and online course design. And for our session here, we chose to focus on the hybrid and online environment because that's where a lot of our things are going. So we can look at instructional design first, and that's our systematic and reflective process of translating principles of learning and instruction into plans for instruction materials, activities, information, resources, and evaluation. Now you can take a variety of different definitions of instructional design. We chose to use this one because it fit the needs of what we were looking at kind of best. So before you begin, there are definitely some considerations to make. So you've got to consider who picks the team and how. So you certainly have conversations with administrators. So you talk about who may be available to co-teach, what courses may be available that you can do some team teaching with. And it truly depends upon some of that direction. So you need to have discussions about workload, how that course is going to be divvied up and what the expectations are. Discussions about class sizes. So different individuals may see things in a slightly different way, when there are two instructors in a course, they may say, oh, you can handle more students, but you're like, no, that's not quite the intent of what we're going for. So you need to make sure you advocate for yourself properly if you are going to use this approach. We talk about evaluations as well. So you're going to have two instructors in a course. How do you expect those evaluations to go? What kind of credit do they hold for when students give you that feedback? Because you're going to get input on both instructors, usually simultaneously with those evaluations. And you may have times that some of these teams are assigned, or there are times that you are volunteered to join a team. Voluntold may be another term that you're aware of, that you're saying, hey, you may be a great person to join this team. And it very well may be because the workload is getting adjusted and they're saying, hey, we got to try to support this course, or something of that regard. So you'll certainly have conversations with your colleagues as well. So something to do before you would start. Talk about their attitude, their knowledge and skills. So I'll tell you that some individuals do not want to work in a team-based approach. It's great to identify that before you begin so you know what challenges you have to overcome. There are others that are much more apt to work in that team-based approach. So definitely good as well to know. The knowledge and skills. So looking at what somebody can bring to the table. What experience have they had in this course, and what can they potentially bring forward? So we look at this instructional design, we can go into a lot of depth, but again, I don't want to emphasize too much of this. We're just going to highlight the big components. We can talk more about the real life things for us. So you can look at a context analysis, a learner analysis, a task analysis, and planning for assessment. First thing you do is conduct a learner needs assessment and determine what your summative evaluation is going to be. We typically do that for all our courses to begin with, but when you go for this redesign with the team approach, it's important to kind of start from scratch just to make sure everything flows out correctly. You want to describe your learning environment. So who are your instructors? What kind of curricula do you already have exist? What might you change since you've got a team approach? What equipment do you have? So when we're on ground / hybrid, things certainly change versus the way we would navigate something when we're doing synchronous or asynchronous via Zoom or other technology. Same with our facilities and organization, and then kind of the larger system, how everything's going to run together. You then look at that target audience, which is your learner analysis. Again, there's more depth to this here where you look at their cognitive, psychological, or physiological, affective, and social needs. But prior knowledge is the biggest thing to consider. So where are your learners really at? And then where do you want them to go? Will show up shortly. Right here, when you develop your goals, where do you want these learners to ultimately go? So just like you've done in your courses, except here, you're going to do this together with your teammate or multiple team members, where you'll look at those goals and you develop your objectives specifically for that course. Once you've got those objectives, you then go ahead and look for that assessment. Again, the important thing to consider here is that you're working with others. For instance, you may have had a course where two individuals may be instructing a course separately, doing it their own way, and now they're combined into one either big section or multiple sections. So usually there's a discussion about that assessment and the assessment components in that joint course. So for instance, I've got a case example. This is my own from a pathophysiology course in nursing. Adjusted it from an on-ground course to a hybrid to a fully online over the past 2 years or so. So it was one of the few things I had fully online before we went pandemic. So that was exciting for me. One less thing to adjust. But there were definitely some things to take into consideration. I worked with my colleague. We did a learner needs assessment, and we said, okay, let's just look at this again. Where are our learners really at? And it's a little interesting because this course I teach to traditional undergraduates and also an accelerated program. So although we've got the same goals for the course, where the students are at is a little bit different. So we always have to be sensitive with that. We make those environmental decisions. We moved totally from, we had made adjustments for both of us and our comfortability with technology because we had one of the smart rooms that we could use. So one of us was a little more comfortable than other with that technology. So we made sure we had appropriate adjustments for that. We certainly looked at our outcomes and goals. And then overall our assessments we redefined together as a team, and then push that forward to administration for ultimate approval with our course. Now we're going to look at delivery. So delivery, for the purposes of us, we're doing the delivery method of our course is going to be typically a hybrid or an online sort of course, okay? Whether it be synchronous or asynchronous or whatever components you would utilize. So we go into with some strategy for this course delivery. There's going to be a way you're going to organize, and there's going to be a way you deliver. When we look at organizational strategy, one of the suggestions is to utilize scaffolding. Now, this is something that you likely utilize in your courses. Maybe you're not familiar with this term, and that's just fine. But really, the principle is you're building on prior knowledge, and you continually build up until you reach that end goal you want the students to be at. Now, there are times with that scaffolding that your support structure is maybe not great. So maybe you got to build up that base a little better than you had anticipated. But it's definitely working in that idea and creating a progression in your course. When we go to delivery, this is how your course kind of flows. So we looked at kind of the content set up with the scaffolding, and this is your flow, for lack of a better term. You start your course with some degree of interest. You say, hey, welcome to this new course. Here we are. This is what we're going to learn. Here's some exciting things for us to do. Then we go through that course. We learn all our stuff that we want to teach our students, right? We give feedback as we progress and use whatever learning strategies we can. Then at the end of that course, we will summarize what we learned, we'll review what we need, we'll test, and then utilize remediation throughout and at the end as we would need to. So I'll use my same sort of example again for delivery. Had a discussion with my teammate about how we're going to make this work. We had a rather large section. We said, okay, when we were in our hybrid format, how do we want to make this deliverable happen? And we used a synchronous and asynchronous split, where some of our stuff we had synchronous time and other time we had asynchronous time. And we decided that because we wanted face time with the students, but we still wanted them to have a lot of flexibility. Since we've moved fully online, we went to more of an asynchronous format, and we implement synchronous as we need to. We kind of do it as a as we go sort of idea. It just gives us a lot of flexibility for what we like to do. Now, I mentioned these things because with my teammate, we had that discussion up front about having that flexibility and making these adjustments as we go. And I know certain teammates would likely not be as excited about making those changes halfway through a course, we'll put it that way. But you know, it's doing that assessment and prior knowledge and kind of the attitudes before you even start. We've integrated things where we do split sessions with faculty. So one day I'm on a synchronous session. The next day, my colleague's on a synchronous session. We've moved it to where I went out for my paternity time, so she handled the synchronous during that time, and I did the synchronous for the other half, sort of idea. There have been times where we're both in there where we feel like it's necessary to do so. Some of these we've planned out beforehand. Other of these we've changed and adapted throughout, depending on the needs of the students and how the course is progressing. We like to integrate whatever interaction we possibly can. So we like to gain interest through polls, just like we did here. We like to use Kahoot and those other sort of integrative activities, especially when we're running some things that are synchronous versus asynchronous where we can. We certainly utilize examples and cases throughout the course. Again, anything we can do to involve engagement. Most of our modality is over Zoom now. So we use a lot of breakout sessions, and we try to provide feedback to those breakout sessions. Along with that, we try to push feedback for individual groups for whatever group activities we have. And certainly we engage in testing and remediation. With our undergraduate pre-licensure degrees in nursing, there's a lot of testing. There's a lot of remediation built in. So we continue with those for our course. Again, we're always just in some degree of communication. I'll briefly talk about testing here as well. So when I'm with my team member, we need to collaborate on the creation of those tests to make sure they're delivered correctly, and then our evaluation of those tests to make sure everything was delivered the way we expected, and then providing education to our students for anything that we're looking to potentially remediate on. Then we're going to move on to instructional management. So this is when we oversee the activities of the classroom, including the student behavior, student interactions, and your learning. So some suggestions here, we look at implementation, management, and evaluation. Now I'll tell you with the theory that we went with that kind of guided a lot of this presentation, some of this gets into project management sort of idea. So if you think of your course as a kind of a project management deliverable, you'll kind of get the idea with some of this. But when we look at implementation, there are some things to consider. There's some different approaches you can take. You want to make sure that you provide a clear picture of implementation. So how we're going to roll out this course. You have that discussion with your colleague. And this should ideally guide your efforts as you continually progress throughout this course, whatever deliverable you may be. You can certainly engage in questionnaires and interviews or open-ended statements to gather feedback from other individuals. So when we're talking in this sort of respect, it's with your peer that you're instructing with. So what kind of things are we doing well? What kind of things are not going the way we should go? Same with this level of use. So you want to make sure that your colleague or colleagues that you're working with feel comfortable with this deliverable and how you're putting it out. They may say, yes, I love this technology, I'm going for it. But when you go to roll it out, they may say, hey, I'm a little weaker than I thought I was. That sort of idea. When we look at management, so who's the lead in this sort of course? Who makes sure that we hit all our metrics as far as making sure everything is fitting with our quality and performance, our time, and our scope? So this is really defined usually by the team members in these faculty roles. I'll tell you in our division, and Dr. Nance will speak to this, we have course coordinators that kind of take this role over. Then we go into evaluation. So certainly formative evaluation throughout our courses, then your summative. So did the learners meet their goal? How do they feel about your instruction? And how did things go overall? What kind of unexpected things did you see? So using this approach to always improve and push your course forward.
So now what we're going to do is give you an example of using this team approach for instructional management. And as Mr. Timchak mentioned, we use that project management approach in the Division of Nursing, where we have what is called a course coordinator. And so when we're overseeing the activities of the classroom, student behavior, the interactions, and learning, we're following that model. So what we have for you in the next slide is actually a breakdown of the model. Now, I know the slide is busy, but if you print it out, we wanted you to have something that was tangible so that you could see how we actually execute our project management team model, at least in R and the BSN. And what you see here is you have a course coordinator. So for each of the courses that we have 9 courses in our program, we have a course coordinator. And with our course coordinator, they receive, as relates to workload, 0.3 credit hours for each section. And that relates to their role here. Highlighting aspects of that role is they're essentially the one that puts together the syllabus, working in collaboration with the team members. They launch and format all the Canvas shells, provide general orientation for all of the sections. And R&BSN, they manage online quiz processes and team analysis, and that can be of the quizzes, as well as foster team meetings for evaluation at the end. So they're the glue that makes sure that all sections are following all the processes from the university, as well as the Division of Nursing. And then they serve as a backup to the faculty. And that's what's really great with this model, is that you have lead faculty that are the primary faculty members of the course, but the course coordinator has removed some of that burden of management so they can focus on their facilitation of teaching and supporting students. And then the course coordinator serves as the support. Our faculty leads, their primary role is instructional delivery. So the course coordinator's primary role is design, and the faculty lead is delivery. And so they facilitate the weekly learning, they grade all the assignments, facilitate the discussion forums, they have office hours, they participate in the course orientation. And because this has been removed, then we just decrease by 0.3 that lead so that we can have this course coordinator support all these sections. Now, what that means is that for all the sections, there's a foundation amount of information, okay? Just a basic level information that's in every class that will meet the goal of the course if you were not to add anything. But because we know that faculty are creative and innovative, the faculty can add whatever type of learning activities they want, as long as the core information is there. And so that's a part of that design aspect, but we still want them to be able to be individuals. And so sometimes the course coordinator teaches the course and sometimes they don't. In this particular situation, the course coordinator is actually teaching a section as well as coordinating the other sections. And so when you're looking at this project approach, you can be very flexible in the way that that's delivered across in another unit if you were to utilize this. So you could kind of move, you might have different course coordinators as it relates to different courses that focus on some things. If there was a hybrid model and you were still utilizing a course coordinator, they would still be the person responsible for that online aspect of the course and that design of the online aspect, and pulling the team together and seeing what is going to be done synchronously and what is going to be in the classroom or face-to-face in the classroom, and then what is actually going to take place in the online setting, and making sure that those are aligned with the learning outcomes and evaluation methods. So, we talked about teams, but I know before I start working with somebody, I want to know, well, what's my part and how is this going to calculate in my workload? I'm told I'm supposed to teach X amount of hours, credit hours every semester. And how does that work? So this slide really talks about developing an equitable workload for team instruction, some strategies as it relates to that. One, the first thing to do is that that's recommended is that we address workload holistically, that we look at workload not just with the courses that are being taught, but the advisement role, the research productivity that's occurring, the number of students that we have, the type of course. Is this a capstone course, or is this a foundational course that requires more support? So we look at those things. Then innovation has to flourish. What works for one unit or what works for pre-licensure in our program may not work for post-licensure. What works for nursing may not work for history or math. But what the wonderful thing about this team approach is that how you come up with your team and how you start working together is really up to the unit. As long as you are clear about what your roles are and that there are expectations of everyone in the role, that's going to help define that. In a team, you want to make sure, as it relates to workload, that you have planned times for communication. It's very helpful to just touch bases to make sure, is there any support needed in another area? I will give an example. I was teaching in a lab in a course a few years ago, and me and the lead faculty would meet together. Well, in our communication, we realized that, you know what? We could take some of this didactic time and use some of this time for our lab. And so we made those adjustments. We were very flexible, and that helped us better meet the needs of the student on some of the more complex skills that they had. And then you want to just create a culture and support a culture where team members help one another and collaborate. That's going to help with equity. That's going to help with a clear communication between the team members, but everyone has to really be on board for that to occur. The other thing outside of, how should we do this is, look, we don't have hardly any money. What's going on? We're all on this, I call it shoestring budget and it's called that in the literature. So what can we do? I want to do the team approach, but I have no idea how to get started. And I'm not sure. Well, these are some things that you could start to do if you're not, as it relates to the team approach. One, you can serve as a guest lecturer. So maybe you're in an area or unit, department at the university where everyone, teaches their own class. This is my class, it's my class. But maybe Professor X has a skill set or knowledge that's really great that could help you in your class, and you have something that you could share with theirs. So you could just drop in and schedule and become a guest lecturer. And now with technology, your guest lecture can actually be pre-recorded or in a Zoom session, or you could use as an extra time outside of class. So that's something that can be done. Sharing assignments is also a way that you can foster team instruction. So sometimes in different sections of courses, there are different assignments. Well, maybe one assignment is working better in that course in Professor X class versus maybe you're like, I don't know about this. I want to do something new. Well, why create the wheel? Why not work with the team and start to share if we're not sharing? So sharing the type of assignments that we have. Also, as it relates to shared assignments, not only just the assignments for the students, but it's assignments even to how we teach. So working together, splitting courses. Mr. Timchak gave a great example about how he was able to, for the first half of the semester, he was able to be on maternity leave while someone did the in-person, taught the in-person course. In the second half, he taught all the lectures, and they were able to divide that. And I've used that approach as well. And it was very helpful for me. I would say when I was going to my doctoral program, that I was in a team approach where we could focus when I was supposed to do certain things, and we were able to do that. The other option is the block course. The block course, looking at a 5 or 8 week segment for your class, that can help, because what can happen, instead of having a 15-week term, you have two courses that can be delivered in that time. And now you have two professors that can share the same 15 weeks. So if they work together in course A, that's the first half of the semester, and they work together in course B, which is the second half of the semester, it'll yield the 3 credits, but it was still, for each of you split it in half, but it would still be the same time frame and that they would have. And then joint course meetings is very helpful for orientations. Maybe there's something right before the midterm where you just open it up. If you have a lot of sections, you can have various time frames, and then people could actually sign up to facilitate those course meetings where you clarify concepts with the students. And just right now, since we have Zoom, it's just so wonderful. You can just have Zoom there and have something on off course time as a part of office hours, but open it up to a lot of students so that they can reap the benefit. But if the team comes together to do that, you can actually work with more students that way. So strategies for a successful team approach: set the ground rules and respect each member on the team. That's so important because it's very easy in teams for power and struggle and things to take place. But if you just focus on having respect for each member of the team, you need to decide where in the process collaboration will occur. Again, it doesn't have to be 2 faculty in the same course. You might decide to collaborate in some of those examples I provided in the previous slide. You want to establish each team member's role and responsibilities, and consider the workload. So maybe in this particular class, the decision was not to go half and half on the workload. The workload looked more like the model I shared with you with RNBSN, or the workload is, you're going to teach 20% in this class, and the other person is going to handle 80% of instruction. I would say instruction, not just teach, but instruction. So you just want to make sure that whatever work they're doing, it goes along with the work, with the credit hour that's been assigned for that particular work. And then we all have our own philosophies, and that's when we have to have the meetings of the mind and come together as it relates to that. So how we look at teaching may be different. And in that planning phase, building upon the strengths of those different approaches may even reflect what that individual does in the class. So it's great to have various different approaches. Sometimes students like just one way and want to see one thing, but we know that being exposed to more helps grow us. You want to, as I mentioned, plan time for communication. And then very important is quality improvement. Quality improvement as it relates to how your team function, and quality improvement as it relates to the outcomes of your students. Setting time as a team to look at not just at the end, but along the way, any type of adjustments that need to be made or any type of additional support that needs to be provided for the students as relates to design, delivery, and management. And then making those recommendations, documenting those recommendations, and then going back at it the next time the course is offered. And so with teams, one, we talk about working together, and it's great to build upon each other. And then we also have resources that are available here at the UNC and City that's going to help foster that instructional team and team members. So Mr. Timchak mentioned earlier that sometimes you have people on a team that have a strength with technology, or someone might have a great strength with test taking. And so we all come with various strengths. And the great thing about a team is we can capitalize on each other's strength, but that we can learn from others and help build and grow. And so recognizing that, learning from each other, we also can learn from our institutions. So there are many videos related to asynchronous video instruction that's on the City YouTube page. You can participate in a City workshop, and we have the links here for you. City provides one-on-one consultation support. So you hear that, City, City, City. So utilize City, because that's what they're here for, is to assist in this. Then we have those monthly webinars, the UNC, they are so great to participate and learn. And currently we have that Designing Effective Online Course training that's going on through our UNC system. And then UNC has provided, and this is very helpful, and I utilized a few of these, it's the use of the UNC Course Enhancement Collection. So what they have are supportive learning resources that you can incorporate into your classes. It's been, it's like shared across the system, that you just go onto this link, and it ranges all kind of the sciences, sociology, language arts. It's just so much information in there that was placed to help assist people as they're trying to support their classes. So for summary, what we want you to know that incorporating an instructional team approach, there are a lot of benefits, not only to the students, but to the faculty. Applying that team approach requires collaboration and effective communication. And then the models are flexible. Okay, we talked a lot about different models, but how you approach it is flexible, and you can come up with whatever model you want to meet your course and your the educational unit's need. And have resources through City and the UNC system to facilitate the professional development of online and hybrid course team members. So before we go into question and comments, just wanted to know how many of you have worked in teams, and what has been your experience in working with teams? So feel free to share. So I see one person has worked in teams. What would you recommend as something to help strengthen your team, or to have an effective team for those who haven't worked in teams?
This is Dr. Banks. I'm so glad to see you all.
Thank you.
I think that since I've been at WSSU, I have taught my research courses have mostly been team taught at the graduate and undergraduate level. And I think the most important thing, and it was something that you all talked about, was communication, 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 and yes, communication. I find that teaching the course hybrid for the undergraduate research course this semester, that I am probably doing more communication than ever since we're not on campus. And so we check in via email after almost every class. We have some Zoom meetings as well as phone, particularly to make sure that we're all one, using the rubrics in the same way. I would also say rubrics are really helpful for team talk classes, but more so to think through if our assignments need to be adapted because, either there's some things that students are missed or just some things that we may need to go over um, again. So the communication, I think, has been the most critical piece to being successful.
Thank you, Dr. Bex, for sharing. And someone's mentioned in the chat, I have not worked in teams before in a class. I'm intrigued about the possibilities as I create, hold on, as I create more classes within our department. Does anyone who's worked on any teams before have any recommendation on how to get started? Well, we can share. So if you're interested in working for the team, first identify the course that you're interested in working on the team, and then identify someone that's willing to work on the team with you and look at that and talk to your chair about the possibility of you working as a team. And it might be that you don't do full integration at first, but that you just start with a little component. So it might be that, okay, we're going to try this out and we're going to share, maybe we're going to share the same test, or maybe we're going to share the same assignment at this time, and we're still in our separate sections. Or let's look at our Canvas shell, and can we come together and have the same learning resources? Can we share our resources? And so our Canvas shells look together even before you get into integrated in the classroom. So I would say take small steps and see how those work, so then you can make adjustments. That would be my recommendation for just getting started. And then it may be that you go to full-fledged integration where your two people are in that class together, linked in banner, but you really can start by sharing work, sharing lectures, sharing resources. And then if you want to guest lecture, you can begin that particular way. Anyone else have any recommendations they would have for working in an effective team?
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you say a little more, I think, is in listening to this about the process for deciding who should be the coordinator for the
Right.
team?
Yeah, so that really is going to be up to the particular unit, but it depends also not just on the unit, but on the needs of the course and what the course coordinator is going to do. So in the slide where I shared in for RN and BSN, are the role of the course coordinator, since that is a totally online program, is the focus of that course coordinator is course design. Okay, whereas the team members is delivery. It may be another model where the focus is something else. Maybe the focus is the syllabi, or the focus is the learning activities, or the focus is the teaching and spreading that out, and or everybody does a little piece. So I think first is what we talked about is where you're going to collaborate in the process. And once you determine where you're going to collaborate in that process, and if you choose to utilize a project manager type of approach, then I think you can be able to better identify who will be the better person. Of course, you want to be familiar with the course and so forth, and the content of being that particular team lead.
I think the other thing to consider when you go to looking at who's going to be that coordinator is having the conversation with team members and say who wants this responsibility or who really doesn't want this responsibility. Sometimes individuals will be asked to do something and feel compelled to agree to do so, even though maybe their workload's higher, or there's something else going on, or they really maybe they're leading too many courses at once, but they'll say yes, even though they're going to get stretched extremely thin. And then sometimes the course can suffer, and you get this animosity between colleagues because I'm coordinating 4 courses and you're just teaching it. You get this sort of idea. So sometimes making sure those things are kind of in the back of your mind can be helpful when you're looking at that allocation of resources.
Do
I
we have
think
any other questions? Oh, go ahead. Oh, thank you, Dr. Silk. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I think the person's background would be important because I would not dare to coordinate a psych course when I teach adult med-surg, so I think their background would be really important too when you're considering who's going to coordinate a course. I think workload is important to consider as well, because as Mr. Timchek said, some people have 4 courses they're coordinating, they teach in all, they do all the grading, they have all the responsibility. So, I mean, I guess part of what we're trying to get a takeaway from this would be to how you communicate and collaborate, and how you divide that workload, because that can make a big difference in how successful the team works together. So
Very good point. And I think that is one of the reasons why we did spend so much time talking about design, delivery, as it relates in management, so that we can see that teaching is not in a course that here at UNC and Winston-Salem State, teaching is not just standing in front of the class, or that's not it. There's a whole lot that goes into this. And those pieces need to be shared equitably. And so you have to have that conversation and dialogue. So it shouldn't be, one person trying to grade everything. It's somewhere along there should be some sharing of what overall management is, what that role of that lead faculty, primary faculty member is, and how that's divided up or lightened some. But one person, if you're in a team, carrying the bulk of all of that, and you're not getting the bulk of the credit, it's time to go back and renegotiate and talk about what's actually being done in that team, but looking at all those pieces.
Definitely. So we had a question in the chat: how would this work outside of nursing and the hard sciences? Yes, that's one of the downfalls of having both of us. We're in nursing, but at least we give you good examples. But as far as implementation outside of nursing, it truly, as Dr. Nance referred to earlier, it depends upon the needs of the unit and kind of what the courses you're trying to deliver. It could be any range of integration with a team member. So starting with kind of the guest lecture and sharing of resources, all the way up to full integration where you're paired with another instructor. So in my mind, I would think of, you're thinking about courses outside of nursing, which I don't deal much with, but you say, I don't know, a general education course where there's multiple sections of the same thing, where you might say, okay, instead of having this instructor teach 3 and the other instructor teach the other 3, we're going to teach all 6 together. We're going to pull our resources together. We're going to do some things synchronously if we're remote, and split some of our time based upon our strengths and other things versus our weaknesses, and try to pull stuff together in that capacity. Then you'd have to follow some sort of model with work distribution on who's going to lead those courses, who's going to do more instruction time, and that sort of idea. But that way you could benefit from the strengths of each team member.
And to build upon that, say you have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday class at 9 to 9:50. Same class with the other team member, 11 to 11:50. You might decide, if you work with the instruction thing, okay, I'm going to teach this content, and you just teach both of those classes, at least both of those classes at that time, during that time. And if you're like 10 or 12 sections, you might have little sub teams that are working together. Okay, so we're dealing with one section to 3 or 4 sections, but if you have like 10 sections of the same class, you may have to have little sub teams that you got these little mini teams that work together, and they can do that. Or you might say, you know what, let's get these shells together. Let's all come together and have a foundational shell for our course with all the basic information in it. Let's all come together, do our little part. Hey, I'm good in this, I'm good in this. Some people think they're good in everything, right? And put that in there. And then this is our English 101 shell. This is our life science shell with the resources and everything. It's not just the ones I know or the ones you know. We got this whole collaboration here, and you still might be in your other sections, but you still have come together as a team. So as Mr. Timchek has mentioned, it can vary. So hopefully that helps you a little bit with that question.
I have a question. How does there's been a lot of conversation about student credit hours. How does that impact student credit hours? How is that counted?
So if you are a undergraduate faculty member, you are supposed to teach at least 12 credit hours, which is about 4 classes, no more than 15 a semester. If you're graduate faculty, I believe it's 9, if I'm not mistaken, per term. And so when you are assigned to a class, you receive a percentage from as low as what we have, 10% for one faculty and 90 for another one, to a full 100%, which is what most of the universities doing. What we do is we go into that percentage, and then we divide that percentage for those courses up, which means that you may find yourself with a few more courses, but the load has been lightened in some areas as it relates to what you have to focus on. So you might have to focus more on getting learning materials together for one course versus the other one, because the course coordinator has already worked with the team, and the teams work together, and they got that information already there, and you could just roll right off of it. And this really helps with, when you get new faculty or you're trying to mentor and grow people, how does somebody come into a blank shell when people have been teaching courses for years? That is a model, but I don't know if it's the best model versus having something that the faculty over years have worked together and build, and this becomes something for the unit. Then you can focus on other aspects of delivery. So back to your question about the credit hours, that's where when your workload is placed in, that is what's counted as relates to our productivity as faculty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments?
I have one more question. So if you're adjuncts, how do you work with their credit hours, how many they're given? Like for me being adjunct, we're only allowed 9 legally because of the Affordable Care Act. But how would that affect credit hours if you had, let's say, an adjunct that is one of your strong adjuncts that you bring back every semester, they're constantly doing above and beyond? How would you divvy up in a team to make it fair for the adjunct to actually get the pay? I'm not quite understanding.
That's a great question, because right now we don't have additional pay for courses, or courses yield themselves. So we made that transition and this is in RN and BSN because we are 100% online, which may be different in a situation where you are face-to-face or in hybrid. That can be looked at different. But if we look at instruction being design, delivery, and management, and all of those components, then the expectation would be, from the perspective that we're talking about the team approach, that either you're doing all of those aspects or you're doing a component. So what we did with our faculty is if you're not the lead faculty, this is for the adjunct, because I work with adjunct, then you get 90% of the pay. So it's about $350. And that $350 is removed from the adjunct because they don't have to come up with learning materials. We have that. We're here to help with developing tests. We're making sure your Canvas shells are together. You don't have to worry about it. You focus on facilitating this class and being there for the students. Now, we have really wonderful adjuncts. some of our adjuncts serve as course coordinators, and they receive the $350 for every section. So if there are 10 sections and they're coordinating, we've had that, and they're coordinating all 10, and they are highly functional. That's what they do. We have about, I think it's 3 courses in which we consistently have adjunct faculty coordinated, and then they just work with the area coordinator, and then in some departments that would be like the chairperson. But that's how we operate with that model. But we've removed that some of that burden. Now, again, our focus here is on a hybrid design and an online for hybrid delivery and online delivery. And so it would be easier to do that versus if that was a in-person class. So if you're dealing with something 100% online and you have somebody focusing on the design, getting your Canvas shell ready, putting your syllabus together, then that's different than if you have to do that yourself for your face-to-face class. Does that answer your question?
Better than what I did have, yes.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
And so initially when we did that, I think it was only 2 people that got upset, okay? But what the faculty realized is they don't have to worry about it. This is being done for you, okay? So I wish we had extra funds and you could pay someone to do the instructional design, but we don't. So to compensate fairly, and we talk about equity and justice, that if you're touching a class and from our perspective and doing any component of what we have talked about is instruction, then you should be receiving something for your workload. And what was happening in our particular area is you had faculty who were doing work, but their workload that's generating in these reports of productivity and what you're doing, it wasn't showing. And so how do you show the effort and the workload of all your faculty fairly? So if you're doing anything in a class, and this isn't for Division of Nursing, then you need to get some type of credit as relates to instruction. And it might just be 5% because that's all you're doing. But if you are doing something in class, you should receive credit. And so operating from a team model, we just make sure that that credit occurs. That's our perspective now. There's others' perspectives.
Right. Guys, we're going to be approaching our 3 o'clock time here. I'm going to be sensitive to everyone's time. We appreciate all of your participation. We hope you did learn something. We'll send out these slides after we are all done with everything. We'll send out that evaluation as well. We'd love to hear your input. Any last comments before we sign off here?
Thank you for coming.
If not, yeah, thank you all. We appreciate it, and you all have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.